The Grand Council chamber was the most impressive place that Captain Nathan Hayes had ever seen. The walls stretched up so high that they seemed to touch the sky itself, even though they were inside a space station. The light came from everywhere and nowhere, a soft glow that made everything look clean and perfect. Hundreds of beings sat in a great circle, each one representing a different alien species. Some were tall and thin like trees made of metal. Others looked like crystals that could think and speak. There were beings that floated in the air, and others that seemed to be made of pure energy trapped inside a shape. Nathan Hayes sat at the very edge of this great gathering. He was the human representative, and he felt small. The other species had been exploring the stars for thousands of years. Humanity had only left Earth 30 years ago. The other aliens had weapons that could destroy planets. They had ships that could travel faster than light itself. They had knowledge written down in libraries that would take a human 1,000 lifetimes to read. The humans had only recently learned to build ships that could carry people to other worlds. They were the newcomers, the young ones, the ones who did not matter much in the grand plans of the galaxy. Ambassador Kreth stood at the center of the chamber. Kreth was from the Talvari, a species of beings made from living crystal. His body was clear and blue, and inside it you could see lights moving like stars. When he spoke, his voice came out like the sound of wind chimes, but somehow everyone could understand the words. "The void plague moves through space like death itself," Kreth said. His voice did not sound sad or scared. It sounded like he was simply stating a fact, the way someone might say that the sun rises in the morning. 17 star systems have been lost. The plague consumes everything it touches. Matter, energy, light itself. Nothing escapes it. Nothing can stop it. An alien named Vex stood up. Vex was from the Zerillion Collective. His body looked like many animals put together in one shape, with too many arms and eyes that looked in different directions at the same time. When he spoke, the words came out like a sound that made your teeth ache. "We have sent our best weapons," Vex said. "We have used every shield and every defense we have created. The plague passes through them like they are not there. It is not fast like a weapon. It is not angry like a storm. It is patient. It is hungry, and nothing can satisfy it." A third being spoke. This one was called Krell, and he came from a species called the Darvan. The Darvan were known to be warriors and hunters. Krell had skin like metal and eyes that glowed with red light. His people had built an empire that stretched across hundreds of worlds through the power of their armies and their willingness to fight. Even the other powerful species did not challenge the Darvan very often. "My people have calculated how long we have before the plague reaches the central worlds," Krell said, his voice hard and cold. "If nothing changes, if nothing can be done, we have 8 cycles, maybe 9. In that time, the plague will consume every major world. Every species here will be dead. Every child, every city, every library and temple and home will be gone. We will be erased from the universe like we never existed at all." The chamber fell silent. None of the great powerful beings said anything. Nathan Hayes looked around at all of them. These were the smartest beings in the galaxy. They had created technology that seemed like magic to humans. They had built cities inside stars and grown forests on worlds made of rock and ice. They had learned to make machines that could think and create art that moved your heart. They had done impossible things, and they looked scared. One of the aliens, a being made of pure light and thought, tried to speak. "Perhaps if we combined our knowledge, if we worked together on the problem, the greatest minds of the galaxy united, we could find an answer." But Kreth shook his head slowly. "We have already tried this. Every species here has shared what we know about the plague. We have combined our knowledge. We have created new weapons and new shields, and none of it matters. The plague is something we do not understand. It is not just a wave of energy. It is not just a force of nature. It is something more than that. Something that does not follow the laws we know. Vex made a sound like he was growling. Perhaps we simply accept what is coming. Perhaps we gather our people and prepare them for the end. We will die, but we will die with honor. We will not run like cowards from something we cannot fight. The other aliens began to speak, some agreeing, some arguing, but all of them sounding tired and sad. Nathan Hayes had sat through many council meetings before, but he had never heard them like this. These beings had ruled the galaxy through their power and their knowledge. Now they were talking about giving up. Nathan Hayes stood up slowly. Every head in the chamber turned toward him. Many of the aliens looked confused. Some looked annoyed. Most simply did not seem to see him at all, even though they were looking in his direction. Humans were new. Humans were weak. Humans did not matter in the great problems of the galaxy. Honored council members, Nathan Hayes said. His voice was not loud or special. It was just the voice of a human man from Earth. I have something to suggest. Kreth looked down at him. Captain Hayes, this is a matter for the advanced species of the galaxy. Humans do not have the knowledge or the technology to help with something like this. That is true, Nathan Hayes said. He did not feel scared anymore. He felt something else. Something cold and clear. We do not have the best technology. We do not have the greatest knowledge. But we have something else. We come from a world that tries to kill us every single day. Vex made a sound like laughing, but not in a happy way. What does that have to do with stopping a plague that consumes entire worlds? We know how to survive things that should kill us, Nathan Hayes said. His words came out simple and clear. We know how to face problems that seem impossible. On Earth, we have storms that tear buildings from the ground. We have earthquakes that break the Earth itself. We have diseases that we cannot see, that hide inside our bodies and try to kill us. For all of our history, we have faced things that tried to destroy us, and we learned to survive. Krell of the Dwarven looked at Nathan Hayes. His red eyes were steady and cold. What are you saying, human? I am saying that you should let us try, Nathan Hayes said. Let my people look at your problem. Let us study this plague. Let us work on finding an answer. What do you have to lose? If we fail, nothing is different from now. If we succeed, you are saved. The chamber was very quiet. Nathan Hayes could feel every eye on him, every mind thinking about what he had said. He thought about his daughter back on Earth, far away and safe. He thought about his sister and her children in the colonies. He thought about all the humans who had come to the stars, looking for a new life and a future. Kreth looked at the other members of the council. They did not speak out loud, but Nathan Hayes knew they were speaking to each other in ways humans could not see or hear. Finally, Kreth turned back to the human captain. You may study the plague, Captain Hayes, Kreth said. We will give you access to the research we have done. We will give you data and information. But I do not believe that humans will find an answer where we have failed. Still, we are desperate. Your offer is one of the few things we have left. Nathan Hayes nodded. He sat down slowly. He had been given a chance. His people had been given a chance. Now humanity had to prove that they were more than just new arrivals in the galaxy. They had to prove that coming from a hard world, a world that tried to kill you every day, meant something. The council meeting continued, but Nathan Hayes did not listen anymore. He was already thinking about what they would need to do. He was thinking about the smartest scientists humanity had. He was thinking about the fact that his people had always survived things that should have destroyed them. This was their moment. This was when Earth's children would show the galaxy what a death world could really produce. Dr. Lisa Monroe stood in the research station and looked at the data on her screen. The numbers meant nothing anymore. She had stared at them for so long that they were just shapes and colors, not information. She rubbed her eyes and tried to think clearly. The research station orbited near the edge of the void plague, close enough to study it, but far enough away that they would have time to run if something went wrong. The station was small compared to the great laboratories of the other species, but it was what humanity had. It was what they could build. It was what they had. Lisa had been a doctor on Earth before she came to space. She had spent years studying how the human body fights off sickness and disease. She had helped cure diseases that had killed millions of people. She understood how life survives. She understood how bodies fight back against things that tried to destroy them. The void plague was not a disease. But maybe it could be understood the same way. The other species had looked at the plague as a physics problem. They had studied energy and matter. They had looked at how it moved through space and what it destroyed. They had tried to stop it with weapons and shields, the way you would stop an army or a storm. But Lisa was a doctor. She looked at the plague and asked different questions. Not what is it made of, but how does it work? Not how can we hit it, but what does it need? What does it want? Every living thing, even things that were not quite alive, had patterns. Things that lived had weaknesses. She called her team together in the main research room. The team was small. There was Kevin Park, a young engineer who had wanted to work on weapons until he met Lisa and decided that finding solutions was better than finding ways to kill. There was David Chun, a computer specialist who could make machines think in ways that most people could not understand. And there was Marcus Webb, an older scientist who had been studying space itself for 40 years. "I think we have been looking at this wrong," Lisa said. She did not waste time with soft words or careful explanations. There was no time for that. The plague is not random. Look at its pattern of movement. She showed them data on the big screen. A map of space with the plague marked in red. At first it looked like a random spread, like spilled blood on a table. But as Lisa zoomed in and changed the way the data was displayed, something became clear. The plague did not move in straight lines. It moved in curves and patterns. It had a shape to its growth. David Chun leaned forward. "It is following something, like it is being directed. Or it is alive," Marcus Webb said quietly. "Or something like alive." Kevin Park was thinking hard. You could see his mind working behind his eyes. If it is alive, it needs energy. We know that. All living things need fuel. They need something to eat. Lisa nodded. This was the first real idea they had found in all their research. Every living thing grows according to what it needs and what it can find. It learns, it adapts. It changes itself to survive. The team worked through the night. They looked at every piece of information the council had given them. They studied pictures of the systems the plague had consumed. They looked at the order in which it moved, the speed it traveled, the way it spread. By morning, they had found something. The plague was not spreading randomly. It was moving in a pattern that suggested intelligence. Not human intelligence, but something that could think in simple ways. Something that could understand energy and how to use it. "This is a weapon," Lisa said. She felt cold when she said it. Someone made this. Someone sent it into the galaxy on purpose. For the first time in the research, the team felt a kind of hope. A weapon could be understood. A weapon had been created by someone, which meant it had limits. It had weaknesses. If you created something, you built in ways to control it or understand it. Over the next weeks, the research moved into new directions. They studied the plague like it was a living organism. They looked at how it consumed energy. They watched how it moved and learned from the patterns it followed. It was slow work, and it was dangerous. 3 times, The plague came closer than expected, and they had to evacuate the station and move it farther away. But humans were used to working with limited resources and big problems. On Earth, doctors had learned to heal with basic tools and clever thinking. Scientists had solved problems with mathematics and observation instead of expensive equipment. Humans knew how to do impossible things when they had to. One night, Lisa was alone in the lab. She had a habit of working alone when she was thinking through hard problems. She looked at a new kind of analysis, something that had come to her suddenly while she was trying to sleep. The plague had a signature, a pattern that was unique to it, like a fingerprint. Every system it consumed, it left marks. Tiny pieces of information that showed what it was and how it worked. Lisa began to see it, not as a weapon, but as a puzzle. A code that could be read if you knew how to look at it. She called Kevin to the lab. It was 3 in the morning, but she did not apologize. "Look at this," she said, showing him the screen. "The plague is communicating, not with words, but with its structure, with the way it is built." Kevin looked tired, but his mind was sharp. It is like a virus on Earth, a simple organism with a simple purpose, but it has a plan. It follows a code. "Exactly," Lisa said. "And if we can read the code, we can understand it. And if we understand it, we can talk to it." The research became almost like archaeology or detective work. They were looking at something that had been sent from somewhere by someone, and they were trying to understand why and how. Every piece of data was a clue. Every pattern was a message. After 3 more weeks, David Chun found something that changed everything. "The plague is not random in what it eats," David said. He was excited, which he rarely was. "It is looking for something specific, a kind of energy signature. When it finds it, it eats it fast. When it does not find it, it moves on slower. Like food," Lisa said. "It is hunting for something specific. If the plague hunted for something, then the plague could be tricked. You could give it something false to eat. You could make it consume itself." Lisa and her team worked on creating a false signature, something that looked like what the plague was hunting for, but was actually something different, something that would make the plague turn its hunger inward. The mathematics was complex. The engineering was harder. But they had something that the great laboratories of the Council did not have. They had the desperation of a young species that knew if they failed, their entire race would be erased from existence. After 6 weeks of non-stop work, Lisa Monroe held a small device in her hands. It was no bigger than a fist. It was simple and beautiful in the way that true solutions always are. Inside it was the code that would trick the plague, the false message that would make the hungry destroyer turn against itself. "This will work," Kevin said. He said it like he knew it for certain, but Lisa could see the fear in his eyes. This would work, but someone would have to take it to the plague. Someone would have to get close enough to activate it. Close enough that there was almost no chance of escape. Lisa looked at Kevin. She looked at David. She looked at Marcus. She knew what she was thinking, and she knew one of them would volunteer. That was what humans did. When the hard thing had to be done, they did it. "One of us has to go," she said. The words were simple and true. Kevin Park stood up slowly. "I will go," he said. "I am the youngest. I have the least to lose." Lisa wanted to argue, but she knew he was right. She knew he was the best choice. But her heart hurt anyway because she already knew that when Kevin went to meet the plague, he would probably not come back. Kevin Park walked to the ship with his hands steady. Inside, his heart was moving too fast, but his hands were steady. That was all that mattered. He had learned that from Captain Hayes, who told him that fear was fine as long as you did what needed to be done anyway. The ship was small and fast, built by human hands with human technology. It was not as beautiful as the ships of other species, but it was strong. It would hold together even when bad things happened. That was the human way of building things. Not perfect, but tough. Not elegant, but able to survive. Kevin climbed into the pilot's seat and began the startup sequence. Each button he pressed was familiar. Each light that came on made sense. This ship was his to understand. This ship was his to fly. Dr. Monroe came into the cockpit. She was trying to smile, but Kevin could see the sadness in her face. She understood that she was probably saying goodbye. She had sent people into danger before, but she had never sent someone to something as final as this. "The device is secure," she said. She held out a small data chip. "This contains the instructions for activation. When you are ready, all you have to do is insert it. The machine will do everything else." Kevin took the chip. It was so small, so simple. Something this small would save or destroy the entire galaxy. He put it carefully into a pouch on his suit. "I will not fail," he said. "I know," Monroe said. She touched his shoulder for just a moment. Then she turned and left. She could not stay in the cockpit. She could not watch him leave, knowing what he was flying toward. Captain Hayes came in as Monroe left. Hayes looked old suddenly, like the weight of everything was pressing down on him. But his eyes were clear and strong. "You remember what I told you about flying?" Hayes asked. "Feel the ship," Kevin said. "Do not just use the instruments. Feel it like it is part of your body." Hayes nodded. "When the instruments fail, and they will fail, you use that feeling. You use your instinct. You trust that you have been trained to do this. You trust that you know what to do." "I understand," Kevin said. "Your family will know what you did," Hayes said. "Your sister will know. Your mother will know. Everyone on Earth will know. When this is over, Kevin Park will be the name that saved the galaxy." Kevin did not want to think about his family. He did not want to think about his mother's face when she learned he was gone. He did not want to think about his sister, who had always teased him but loved him anyway. Instead, he thought about the trillions of aliens who would live or die based on what he did in the next hours. Hayes left the cockpit. Kevin began the final checks on the ship. Everything was ready. The engines were hot and ready to burn. The navigation system was locked onto the coordinates that would take him to the edge of the void plague. The device that could save or destroy everything was secure in his suit. Kevin Park launched the ship toward the darkness that was eating the galaxy. The flight at first was calm. The void of space was black and empty, the way space always was. Kevin flew past asteroids and debris. He flew past the bodies of ships that had tried to fight the plague and lost. They were frozen in space now, empty and dead. As he got closer to the plague's edge, the universe began to change. Light did not behave normally anymore. Colors that did not have names in any language began to appear at the edge of his vision. The instruments started to fail one by one. First, the long-range sensors went dark. Then the communication array began to break apart. Captain Hayes' voice came through his headset, distorted and cutting out. "Kevin, you are doing incredible work. The whole galaxy is watching. The whole galaxy knows what you are trying to do. When this is over, I expect a drink," Kevin said back. His voice sounded normal, but inside he was terrified. The fear was there, huge and dark, but he pushed it down. He pushed it into a small box in his mind and closed the door on it. "Top shelf," Hayes promised. "The best Earth whiskey we have." The communication signal got worse and worse. Soon there was nothing but static. Kevin was alone with his ship and the instrument panels that were slowly dying around him. The ship began to shake. Not from impacts, but from the energy itself. The void was eating the energy that powered the ship. The engines were struggling to keep burning as the very reality around them began to collapse into nothing. Kevin did not look at his instruments anymore. They were dying. Instead, he felt the ship like Captain Hayes had taught him. He felt it like it was his body, and he was flying through something that was trying to kill him. Like his own body had once fought a sickness, his ship fought against the plague. He made a turn that no instrument would have suggested. The ship banked hard to the left, and Kevin felt the rightness of it. He accelerated, and the engines roared with power before the void consumed that power too. The ship was dying. Kevin knew this, but it was not dead yet. While it was not dead, it could still fly. While it could still fly, he could still complete the mission. And then he saw it. The center of the void plague. The heart of the darkness. It was not what Kevin expected. There was a structure there. A machine. An actual object floating in the heart of the consuming darkness. Something that someone had created and sent into space to destroy everything. Kevin understood now what he had to do. The countermeasure would not just stop the plague. It would destroy the weapon itself. Someone, somewhere, had sent this thing to eat the galaxy. And Kevin Park was about to make that thing destroy itself. His hands moved across the failing instruments. He found the slot where the data chip went. His fingers, steady even now, inserted the chip that Monroe had created. The device came alive. Energy pulsed outward from a small ship like light itself. The plague recognized the energy signature it was hunting for. The hunger that had driven it through the galaxy suddenly focused on this source. This meal, this food. But the signature was a lie. The plague began to eat itself. It began to consume its own structure, following the false pattern that Kevin's device was sending out. The great darkness that had consumed 17 star systems began to collapse inward. It began to fold in on itself. The light grew so bright that Kevin could not see anymore. He felt the ship shake one last time. He felt the heat and the pressure and the end of things. His last message made it through, broken and distorted, but clear enough for those who loved him to understand. Tell everyone. Tell them humanity answered. Tell them we chose to save. Then there was only silence and the void, and the knowledge that Kevin Park had saved the galaxy, but would never see what he had saved. The news traveled faster than any message could travel through normal space. Every sensor in the galaxy that was pointed at the void plague showed the same thing at the same time. The darkness was gone. The plague that had consumed 17 star systems and threatened to end all life in the galaxy had been destroyed. The Grand Council chamber was filled with noise for the first time since the crisis began. Not the organized discussion of intelligent beings, but the chaos of emotion and shock. Every member of the council was trying to speak at once. Some were expressing disbelief. Some were expressing joy. Some were simply making sounds that showed they could not believe what had happened. Captain Nathan Hayes stood at the center of the chamber, and every eye turned toward him. The human captain stood alone in the middle of all those powerful beings, and he was the one who had brought them the answer. He was the one whose people had saved them all. Ambassador Kreth walked down from his seat. The crystalline being that had dismissed the humans now moved toward the captain with clear respect in every movement. Humanity did the impossible, Kreth said. His voice was no longer the voice of someone speaking to a lesser being. It was the voice of one warrior speaking to another warrior after a great victory. Chancellor Vex came forward also. The many-armed alien looked at Nathan Hayes with eyes that suddenly saw him clearly. We owed our lives to humanity, to your Dr. Monroe, who created the solution, to Captain Hayes, who led them, and to the brave Kevin Park, who gave his life so that the rest of us could live. But it was Commander Krell of the Dorvan Empire who spoke the words that changed everything for humanity. The Dorvan were known to be harsh judges. They did not give praise easily or respect those they considered weak. If Krell spoke well of humans, then the entire galaxy would listen. In our analysis, Krell said, his red eyes fixed on Nathan Hayes, we have calculated that the solution Dr. Monroe created should have been impossible. It required a kind of thinking that our computers could not achieve. It required creativity that comes from a different kind of mind. Your species came from a harsh world, a world that tried to kill you every day. This has created something in humanity that we did not have. This has created the ability to solve problems that seem unsolvable. Captain, we were wrong about your people. We were very wrong. The words meant more than Krell probably understood. The Dwarven Empire had never admitted to being wrong about anything. Yet Krell had said it with his red eyes and his warrior's pride. The entire galaxy heard those words, and the entire galaxy began to change how it thought about humanity. Over the following days and weeks, the response from across all the galactic powers became overwhelming. The Talvari, who had created weapons and shields that seemed like magic, came forward with gifts. They offered medical technology that would save millions of human lives every year. They offered energy systems that would power human worlds. They offered knowledge that they had protected for thousands of years. The Xyrillians, who had built their civilization on the manipulation of forces and energy itself, shared their techniques with humanity. They taught humans how to understand and control powers that had always been invisible. They made human scientists their partners in research and discovery. Even the aggressive Dwarven Empire, who had expanded their territory through military force and fear, agreed to peace with humanity. They agreed to trade agreements that would help both species prosper. More than that, they agreed to military cooperation. They agreed to let humans be part of their defense strategies. But the most significant change happened far from the council chamber. It happened in schools and universities across the galaxy. Young Talvari began to study human history. They learned about the struggles of human civilization. They learned about how humans had nearly destroyed themselves, then pulled back from the edge of extinction and started again. They learned about human art and music and writing, and they began to understand that humans had something that no other species seemed to have. They had the ability to create beauty and meaning even in the face of terrible hardship. Young Xyrillians studied human philosophy. They read about human thinkers who had asked questions about right and wrong, about justice and mercy, about what made life worth living. They found that humans thought about the same questions that occupied the greatest Xyrillian minds. Even young Dwarven read stories about human warriors. They read about humans who had fought not because they were stronger, but because they would not give up. They read about humans who chose to sacrifice themselves so that others could live. The Dwarven, who prided themselves on strength and courage, found that they respected human courage more than any other kind. The prevailing story about humanity began to change across the entire galaxy. Humans were not thought of as primitive newcomers anymore. They were thought of as a species with a unique gift. A gift that came from living on a world that tried to kill you. A gift that made humans capable of solving problems that seemed impossible. Nathan Hayes was given an office in the Galactic Command Station. His title was Commander of the Joint Galactic Defense Force. This meant that humans had responsibility not just for Earth and human colonies, but for the security of the entire galactic community. Hayes accepted this responsibility, knowing that his people would be tested, but also knowing that humanity had already proven itself capable of the impossible. He began to assemble a command structure that combined human adaptability with the technological power of other species. He took the best military minds from every civilization and brought them together. The results were remarkable. New defense systems were created that used both human creativity and alien technology. Battle strategies were developed that took into account the unique way that humans thought about problems. Back on Earth, the response to Kevin Park's sacrifice was overwhelming. The entire world mourned him, but they also celebrated him. Kevin Park was the first human to be honored galaxy-wide for his actions. Schools were named after him. Cities created monuments to his memory. His family was given honors and respect. Captain Hayes attended Kevin's memorial service in person. The ceremony was held in the city where Kevin had been born. Hundreds of thousands of people gathered to remember the young man who had saved them all. Hayes spoke to Kevin's family first. He spoke to Kevin's mother, who had tears in her eyes but also pride. He spoke to Kevin's sister, who was angry and sad, but also understood why her brother had done what he did. He told them that Kevin had changed the galaxy forever, that his name would be remembered for thousands of years. Then Hayes spoke to all the people who had gathered. He stood before them and told them the truth about what Kevin had done and why he had done it. Kevin Park understood something that many of us forget, Hayes said. His voice was clear and steady. We are all connected. What we do ripples outward farther than we can see. A single human in a small spacecraft at the edge of the void saved trillions of lives. Not through superior technology or ancient wisdom. Through courage and sacrifice and the simple human refusal to accept that something could not be done. Hayes paused. He looked out at the crowd. He looked at Kevin's family. Kevin Park was brave, Hayes said. But he was brave the way all humans can be brave. He saw what needed to be done, and he did it. Even though it scared him. Especially because it scared him. That is what being human means. We do what needs to be done, even when it terrifies us. Especially then. That is why the galaxy needed humanity. That is why Kevin Park mattered. That is why he will be remembered forever. As Hayes spoke, tears fell from his eyes. Not because he was sad that Kevin was gone, but because he was proud of what his species had shown the galaxy. Humanity was not the fastest or the strongest, but humanity had something that no other species seemed to have. Humanity had the ability to choose to save others, even when saving others cost them everything. And that choice, that simple human choice to sacrifice and to try, had saved the entire galaxy from darkness. 6 months after the Void Plague was destroyed, the first permanent human embassy opened on the Talvari homeworld. The building was made from crystal that had been grown in the shape of the human form, but smooth and beautiful in the way that only alien architecture could be. The walls caught the light of the blue sun and turned it into colors that had no names in any human language. When the embassy was opened, thousands of Talvari came to watch. They wanted to see the humans who had saved them. They wanted to see what these creatures from the harsh world looked like in person. But what struck the human delegation most was not the building or the ceremony. What struck them was a garden that the Talvari had created in front of the embassy. The garden was filled with plants that grew in patterns that looked like the mathematics of the universe. In the center of the garden stood a statue made from the same crystal as the embassy building. The statue was of Kevin Park. His features had been captured in detail. His face showed determination and peace at the same time. In his hands, he held a sphere that represented the countermeasure device. Around the base of the statue, crystal had been carved with words that all the species of the galaxy could read. In honor of Kevin Park, human of Earth, who saved the galaxy when the galaxy did not believe in him. Dr. Lisa Monroe read the words and felt something break inside her chest. She had lost a good person, a young man who had worked beside her, who had trusted her, who had sacrificed everything based on her research. The tears came, but they were tears of both sadness and pride. Nathan Hayes put his hand on her shoulder. He would like this, Hayes said. He would like that people remembered him for what he did, not for the fact that he died. Monroe nodded. She could not speak, but she nodded over the following months and years. Dr. Lisa Monroe became the leader of a great research project. She led the Joint Galactic Research Initiative, which brought together the greatest minds of every species in the galaxy. Humans worked side by side with Talvari, Xyrillians, Dorvan, and dozens of other species. The breakthroughs that came from this cooperation were remarkable. Scientists discovered how to cure diseases that had killed billions of Xyrillians. Engineers developed a new propulsion system that increased travel speed by 40%. Physicists unified 17 different theories of quantum consciousness into one system that explained how the universe worked. But the most important discoveries were the ones that showed how different species could think in different ways and create solutions together. When humans added their perspective to a problem, it often led to answers that pure logic could not find. When aliens added their knowledge to human intuition, results came faster and stronger than either could achieve alone. The human military gained new respect when Captain Nathan Hayes was appointed as commander of the entire Galactic Defense Force. All the species of the galaxy, even the proud Dorvan, accepted human leadership. This was remarkable because it showed that the galaxy now trusted humans not just for one desperate solution, but for the future itself. Hayes assembled a command structure that was different from anything that had been tried before. He did not want the most powerful weapons or the most advanced technology. He wanted the smartest people from every species, people who could think in different ways. He wanted humans with their adaptability and intuition. He wanted Dorvan with their warrior experience. He wanted Talvari with their mathematical precision. He wanted Xyrillians with their understanding of energy and force. The defense force that Hayes built became legendary across the galaxy. It was small compared to what the old powers had built, but it was more effective than all the old military systems combined. It was effective because it thought about problems in new ways. It was effective because it valued human creativity as much as alien firepower. Back on Earth, changes were happening that would affect humanity's future forever. The species that had been isolated and limited suddenly had access to knowledge and resources from every civilization in the galaxy. Humans began to expand across the stars with a new confidence and a new sense of purpose. They colonized harsh worlds that other species considered uninhabitable. In the frozen wastelands of ice worlds, humans built cities that thrived. In the burning deserts of scorched planets, they created settlements that turned rock into fertile ground. In the crushing pressure of ocean worlds, they learned to build habitats that let humans thrive. Other species watched this and understood something important. Coming from a harsh world did not make humans weak. It made them capable of surviving in places where others could not. It made them valuable to the galaxy in ways that no one had predicted. Humans became traders and explorers. They traveled to regions of space that other species had avoided because of the dangers. They built trading posts in dangerous sectors. They made contact with species that had been isolated for thousands of years. They became the bridges between different parts of the galaxy that had never connected before. And in all of this growth and expansion, Kevin Park was remembered. Every year, the anniversary of the day the plague was destroyed became a galactic holiday. It was called Humanity Day. On this day, every species in the galaxy remembered the young human who had given his life to save them all. Schools stopped classes so that students could learn about Kevin Park and about the courage that humans had shown. The Dorvan, who had spent thousands of years building an empire based on military power, began to teach their children about Kevin Park. They taught their young warriors that strength was not just physical force. Strength was also the choice to sacrifice yourself for others. The greatest warriors, they began to say, were the ones who would walk into darkness to save their people. Captain Nathan Hayes became old in his position as commander of the galactic forces. He trained the next generation of human military leaders. He taught them not just tactics and strategy, but also the values that humans had brought to the galaxy. He taught them that thinking different was not a weakness. Asking new questions was not disrespectful. Trying unconventional solutions was not shameful. Years passed. Nathan Hayes retired from his position and returned to Earth. An entire generation of humans had grown up knowing that their species mattered in the galaxy. Young humans knew that they came from a world that made them special. A world that had taught them to survive and to create and to try impossible things. Hayes lived his final years in peace, knowing that he had been part of something that would change the galaxy forever. He would sometimes visit the memorial to Kevin Park that had been built near his home. He would stand there and remember the young man who had chosen to fly into darkness so that others could live in light. On his last day, Nathan Hayes stood before his daughter and spoke to her about Kevin Park. His daughter was grown now, with children of her own. She had inherited her father's strength and her mother's wisdom. Kevin Park was brave, Hayes told her, not because he was bigger or smarter than other humans. He was brave because he understood something simple but true. We are all connected. What we do affects others. And sometimes what we do can save worlds. Can save everyone. One person can change the galaxy if they are willing to give everything. His daughter listened to her father and understood the weight of what he was telling her. She understood that this was not just a story about the past. This was a lesson about the future. This was a truth about what it meant to be human. As the sun set over Earth, Nathan Hayes looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, across the vast distances of space, there were billions of beings living in freedom because of humanity's choice to help. Because of Kevin Park's choice to sacrifice. Because humans understood that some things were worth dying for. The galaxy had learned a lesson from the Deathworlders. The lesson was that strength came in many forms. That the most powerful thing in the universe was not a weapon or a technology. It was a choice. The choice to save. The choice to try. The choice to be brave even when you were terrified. And that choice, that simple human choice, would echo through the galaxy for thousands of years to come. The future was bright now. The darkness had been defeated. And humanity had shown the galaxy that even the newest, the weakest, the smallest species could change everything. All you had to do was look at the impossible and refuse to accept defeat. All you had to do was be human.